You ever sit back and think about how one small decision could completely rewrite history? Like, what if one marriage, just one, changed everything in Westeros? Because I've been obsessed with this idea lately. What if Cersei Lannister never married Robert Baratheon, and instead she married Ned Stark? Yeah, let that sink in. No drunken king, no loveless, violent marriage, no secret children born of incest, at least not in the same way. Instead, imagine the cold, calculating lioness of the West being sent north to Winterfell to marry the most honorable man in the Seven Kingdoms. At first, it sounds impossible, right? But politically, it actually makes a scary amount of sense. After Robert's rebellion, Tywin Lannister needed to secure his family's position. In the original timeline, he offered Cersei to Robert. But what if Robert, stubborn as he was, refused? Maybe he didn't trust Tywin. Maybe Jon Arryn advised against it. So instead, Tywin pivots. He offers Cersei to Ned Stark, the new Warden of the North, a war hero, and a man whose loyalty could anchor the realm. And Ned, he accepts. Not out of love, not even out of desire, but duty. Because that's who Ned Stark is. Now here's where things start to get really interesting. Catelyn Tully, she never becomes Ned's wife. That alliance with the Riverlands? Gone. Bran, Arya, Sansa, Robb, Rickon, none of them exist. Just think about that for a second. Half the emotional core of the story erased before it even begins. Instead, Cersei arrives in Winterfell. And let's be honest, this is not King's Landing. Winterfell is cold. It's quiet. It's honest in a way Cersei has never experienced. There are no whispering courtiers, no endless games of manipulation, at least not at first. The North doesn't play the same way the South does, and Cersei hates it. At the beginning, she feels exiled, punished even. She went from dreaming of being Queen of the Seven Kingdoms to being the lady of a frozen castle at the edge of the world. But here's the twist most people don't think about. Cersei is incredibly adaptable. She doesn't stay miserable forever. At first, she tries to play her usual game manipulation, charm, subtle intimidation, but it doesn't work the same way on the Northerners. These people aren't impressed by gold or legacy. They respect strength and honesty, two things Cersei isn't used to offering. And then there's Ned. This is where the dynamic becomes fascinating, because Ned Stark is probably the worst possible man for Cersei, and also the best. He doesn't fear her. He doesn't desire power the way others do. He doesn't play games. When Cersei tries to provoke him, he doesn't snap. When she tries to manipulate him, he simply refuses to engage. And for the first time in her life, Cersei meets someone she cannot control. At first, she hates him for it, but slowly, something shifts. Ned is kind to her, not in a romantic, passionate way, but in a steady, reliable way. He gives her respect. He listens when she speaks. He doesn't humiliate her. He doesn't cheat on her. He doesn't treat her like a political object. And that's something Cersei has never truly had. Now here's where things get a little unexpected and honestly kind of ironic. Over time, Cersei starts to soften. Not completely, she's still Cersei, but living in the North changes her. The absence of constant betrayal, the distance from her toxic relationship with Jaime, the stability of Ned's presence, it all begins to reshape her. And yes, believe it or not, there could even be something resembling affection. Not a fairy tale romance, not some perfect love story, but something real, something awkward, slow, and deeply human. Imagine this Cersei standing on the walls of Winterfell, wrapped in furs, watching the snowfall. Ned joins her. They don't say much. They don't need to. And for once, Cersei isn't thinking about power or revenge. She's just there. Now, don't get me wrong, this doesn't mean everything becomes peaceful, because the real question is, what happens when King Robert still comes north? What happens when politics follow them? What happens when Cersei's past and her family come knocking on Winterfell's gates? And most importantly, what happens when a woman like Cersei Lannister is given something she's never had before, and then risks losing it? Because if there's one thing we know about Cersei, she doesn't let go quietly. Time in Winterfell changes people, but it doesn't stop the world from moving. It had been years since Cersei arrived in the North, long enough for the cold not to feel like punishment anymore. Long enough for the servants to stop whispering when she passed. Long enough for her to learn the names of the people, the rhythms of the castle, even the silence. And somewhere in that quiet life, something unexpected happened. Cersei gave Ned Stark a son, not a golden-haired Lannister child that sparked rumors and suspicion, but a dark-haired boy with grey eyes, undeniably a Stark, undeniably Ned's. That alone changes everything. Because now, Cersei isn't just a southern outsider anymore. She's tied to the north by blood, and strangely, that matters to her more than she ever thought it would. But peace in Westeros is always temporary. The news comes suddenly. King Robert is riding north, and just like that, everything Cersei thought she had built starts to feel fragile, because Robert Baratheon is not just a king, he's a storm. Loud, unpredictable, and dangerous in ways people underestimate. And unlike Ned, Robert remembers exactly who Cersei was supposed to be, his queen, the woman Tywin once offered him. And when Robert arrives at Winterfell, the tension is immediate. You can almost feel it in the air, the clash of two completely different worlds. Robert is everything the North is not. He drinks too much, laughs too loudly, disrespects the quiet order of Winterfell without even realizing it. He brings the South with him its arrogance, its politics, its chaos. And then he sees her, Cersei, standing beside Ned, wearing Stark colors, calm, composed, changed. And for a brief moment, Robert doesn't joke. He doesn't laugh. He just stares, because this isn't the ambitious, sharp-tongued girl he almost married. This is something else, something colder, but also steadier, and maybe, just maybe, that unsettles him more. Now here's where things start getting complicated in a very real way. Robert doesn't trust the Lannisters, not fully, never has. And seeing Cersei here, married into one of the most honorable houses in the realm, it raises questions, quiet ones, dangerous ones. Meanwhile, Cersei is watching everything. And she understands something Ned doesn't, not yet. Robert didn't come north just to visit. He came with purpose. Soon enough, it's revealed. Robert offers Ned the same thing he once did in the original timeline, the position of Hand of the King. But in this version of the story, it hits differently, because now Cersei is part of the equation. If Ned accepts, they leave Winterfell. They go south, back into the world Cersei came from, the world she knows too well, the world she both misses and fears. And for the first time in years, you see something in Cersei that almost looks like conflict. Because here's the truth she doesn't want to admit. Part of her wants to go back to power, back to influence, back to the game. But another part of her, the part shaped by the North, by Ned, by the quiet life she never expected to value, knows exactly what that world does to people. It destroys them. That night, there's a moment that really defines everything. Cersei and Ned sit alone in their chambers, no guards, no court, no masks, and she asks him something simple. Do you trust him? Ned doesn't hesitate. He's my king. But that's not an answer. And Cersei knows it. She studies him for a long moment, then says quietly, "That's not what I asked." And for once, Ned doesn't respond immediately, because deep down, even he knows something feels off. This isn't just an old friend visiting. This is the beginning of something dangerous. And then comes the twist that changes everything again. Late at night, Cersei receives a letter, not from King's Landing officially, from her father, Tywin Lannister. The message is short, cold, direct. He knows Robert is in Winterfell. He knows Ned might be named Hand. And most importantly, he reminds Cersei who she is, a Lannister, not a Stark. And he makes one thing very clear. If she returns south, she is expected to act in the interests of her family, no matter what. And just like that, the past she thought she left behind comes crashing back. Because now, Cersei is no longer just a wife. She's a piece on the board again. And the real question becomes, when the game begins, whose side is she really on? The decision is made faster than Cersei expected. Ned Stark accepts the role of Hand of the King. Of course he does. Duty always wins with him. Within days, Winterfell begins to change. The quiet halls fill with movement servants packing, soldiers preparing, banners being folded and tied. It feels less like a journey and more like an ending. And in many ways, it is. because Cersei knows something Ned refuses to admit. Once you go south, you don't come back the same. The road to King's Landing is long, too long, long enough for thoughts to grow heavy. Their son rides with them, a small, quiet boy who looks more like Ned every day. Cersei watches him often during the journey, and there's something almost protective in her gaze now. Not political, not strategic, personal, and that alone shows how much she's changed. But as the southern air grows warmer, that old part of her begins to wake up. By the time the Red Keep comes into view, Cersei Lannister is no longer just the Lady of Winterfell. She's something sharper again, more aware, more dangerous. King's Landing hasn't changed. It still smells the same heat, wine, secrets. The streets are louder, dirtier. The Red Keep still stands tall, but now Cersei sees it differently. Before, it was a prize. Now it feels like a trap. Robert welcomes them with his usual loud energy, already half drunk before sunset. He claps Ned on the back, calls for feasts, laughs like nothing in the world could possibly go wrong. But Cersei notices the small things, the tension in the small council, the way the servants avoid eye contact, the whispers that stop when she walks into a room, and most importantly, the absence of control. Because unlike Winterfell, King's Landing is always unstable, and instability creates opportunity but also danger. Very quickly, Cersei realizes something else. Without her as queen, the power structure here is completely different. There's no Lannister dominance in the same way, no direct influence over Robert. Instead, there are factions, subtle, shifting, watching, and one name keeps coming up: Jon Arryn, or rather, his death. Because just like in the original timeline, Jon Arryn didn't die peacefully. And Ned, being Ned, starts asking questions. At first, Cersei tries to ignore it. She tells herself it's not her problem, that she's not part of this game anymore. But that's a lie, because the moment Ned begins investigating, she's pulled in whether she likes it or not. One night, she finds him reading in their chambers, papers scattered everywhere, names, dates, connections, and she sees that look on his face, the same look he had during the war. Focused, determined, dangerous in its own way. "What are you doing?" she asks. Ned doesn't hide it, looking for the truth. And that's when something shifts in Cersei again. Because she knows this city. She knows what happens to people who look for the truth here. They don't survive. For the first time since coming south, her voice isn't sharp or manipulative. It's serious. Then, stop. Ned looks up. Confused, she steps closer, lowering her voice. "You don't understand this place. The truth here isn't something you find. It's something that gets you killed." But Ned Stark doesn't stop. He never does. And that's when Cersei realizes something terrifying. The man she's grown to respect, maybe even care for, is walking straight into the same kind of trap that destroyed so many others. And this time, she can see it coming. Meanwhile, Tywin's influence begins to close in. Not openly, not aggressively, quietly. Lannister soldiers appear in the city. Old allies re-emerge. Messages arrive, subtle reminders that Cersei is still part of something much bigger than herself. And then Jaime returns. That's the moment everything becomes personal again. Because Jaime Lannister isn't just her brother, he's her past. And when they finally see each other in the Red Keep, there's a silence between them that says everything. This isn't the same Cersei he remembers, and she can see it in his eyes too. He doesn't understand who she's become. "Winterfell changed you," he says quietly. Cersei doesn't deny it, but she also doesn't explain. Because how do you explain something like that? How do you explain that for the first time in your life you had something real, and now you're back in a place where nothing is real at all? But Jaime brings more than just memories. He brings warning, because he tells her something that confirms her worst fear. People are already watching Ned closely, and not everyone wants him alive. Now the tension becomes unbearable. Cersei stands between two worlds. On one side, her husband, a man too honorable to survive the game he's playing. On the other, her family, powerful, ruthless, and expecting her loyalty no matter the cost. And right in the middle, her son. Because whatever happens next won't just decide Ned's fate, it will decide his. And for the first time in her life, Cersei isn't thinking about power. She's thinking about survival, real survival. Because she knows something Ned still refuses to accept. In King's Landing, Honor doesn't protect you. It gets you killed. It begins with a book, not a sword, not a betrayal, not even a whisper, just an old heavy book that Jon Arryn had been reading before he died, and somehow that makes it even more dangerous. Ned finds it in the same way he always does, by following patterns, asking questions no one once answered, pulling at threads that were never meant to be touched. The book is simple, almost boring, a record of noble lineages, hair colors, eye colors, family traits. But Ned Stark doesn't see boredom. He sees truth, and once he sees it, he can't unsee it. Because every Baratheon listed, every single one has the same traits: black hair, strong features. It's consistent, unbreakable. Until now, because Robert's supposed children don't match. Not even close. Blonde hair, green eyes, Lannister traits. And just like that, Ned realizes what Jon Arryn died for. The truth isn't complicated, it's brutal. Robert's children aren't his. Now here's where this story changes in a way no one expects, because in the original timeline, this truth leads directly to Cersei. But in this version, Cersei is not the queen, she is not the mother of those children, and yet she still understands exactly what this means. Because when Ned confronts her not with anger but with quiet, devastating certainty, she doesn't deny it. She doesn't panic. She closes the door and listens. "Tell me," she says. And when Ned explains what he's found, something strange happens. Cersei doesn't look shocked. She looks thoughtful, because she knows the Lannisters. She knows what they're capable of. And more importantly, she knows her father. Tywin doesn't make careless moves. If Lannister blood sits on the throne even through deception, it's not an accident, it's strategy. And suddenly, everything becomes clear. This wasn't just about Robert's weakness. This was about control. Now Ned Stark, honorable, predictable, stubborn Ned, is standing right in the middle of it, holding a truth that could tear the entire realm apart. "What will you do?" Cersei asks him quietly. And there it is again, that answer she both respects and fears. The right thing. Cersei almost laughs, not because it's funny, but because it's tragic. Because she knows what the right thing looks like in King's Landing. It looks like a grave. For the first time since they arrived, Cersei feels something close to panic. Not for herself, for him. And that changes everything. Because now she has a choice to make, and it's not a political one. It's personal. That night, she doesn't sleep. She walks the halls of the Red Keep alone, the same halls she once dreamed of ruling. But now, every shadow feels heavier. Every corner feels watched. And then she does something no one would expect. She goes to Jaime, not as a sister, not as a conspirator, but as someone who needs the truth. When she finds him, he's exactly where he always is, calm, confident, untouched by fear. And when she tells him what Ned knows, the silence that follows is dangerous. Because Jaime doesn't deny it. He doesn't need to. Instead, he says something that confirms everything. Then he's already dead. Just like that. Simple, cold, final. And for the first time, Cersei feels anger toward her own blood. "Does it matter to you at all?" she asks, her voice tight. Jaime studies her carefully. "You've changed." That's not an answer. And she knows it. Because the truth is, Jaime hasn't. And neither has their family. Which means, if Ned moves forward with this, the Lannisters will destroy him. No hesitation, no regret. That's when it finally hits her. There is no middle ground, no clever solution, no way to protect everyone. If she stands with Ned, she betrays her family. If she stands with her family, she signs Ned's death sentence. And in the middle of all of it is her son. A Stark by blood, a Lannister by name. The child who will not survive a war between both sides. The next morning, everything feels different. The air is heavier, the city louder. Like something is about to happen, even if no one else can see it yet. Ned is preparing to act. Cersei can see it in the way he moves, the way he speaks, the way he's already thinking ahead. He's going to tell Robert. He's going to expose everything. And when he does, the realm will burn. So Cersei does the one thing she never thought she would do. She tries to stop him, not with manipulation, not with threats, but with honesty. You think truth will save you, she tells him, her voice low, almost pleading. It won't. It never has in this city. Ned looks at her, steady as always. If I do nothing, I'm no better than the men who caused this. And there it is, the line that seals his fate. Because Cersei knows something he doesn't. In King's Landing, being better doesn't keep you alive. It just makes you easier to destroy. And now, the clock is ticking. Because once Robert hears the truth, there's no going back. The truth reaches the king. But not the way Ned planned. Because in King's Landing, plans don't matter. Timing does. And someone moves faster. Robert Baratheon doesn't hear it from Ned Stark in a calm, controlled conversation. He hears it in chaos, half drunk, half in rage, surrounded by whispers that suddenly make sense. Accusations, doubts, questions about his children. And Robert, for all his flaws, is not a fool when it comes to betrayal. At first he laughs it off. Loud, dismissive, angry. But then the details start lining up. The hair, the lineage, the things he ignored for years because it was easier not to see. And just like that, the laughter stops. The Red Keep changes overnight. Guards double. Doors close faster. Conversations die the moment someone walks in. Everyone feels it. Something is coming. And right in the center of it all is Ned Stark. Because whether he spoke yet or not doesn't matter anymore. His name is already attached to the truth. And in a place like this, that's enough. Cersei realizes it too late. She had hoped, just for a moment, that maybe she could control the damage, that maybe she could guide things, soften the impact, protect Ned without completely betraying her family. But that illusion is gone. Now everything is moving too fast. Robert demands answers, not quietly, not privately, publicly. And that's what makes it worse. Because once a king starts asking questions in front of the court, there's no burying the answers. Ned is summoned, and Cersei knows deep down this is the last moment where anything can still be changed. She finds him before he enters the throne room. For a second, neither of them speaks. There's too much to say and not enough time. You don't have to do this, she tells him, her voice tight, controlled. But there's something real underneath it now. Something raw. Ned looks at her the same way he always has. Steady. Certain. Yes, I do. And that's when it finally becomes clear to her. She cannot change him. She never could. And maybe that's why she stayed. Because he was the only man who never bent. But now, that strength is about to kill him. Inside the throne room, everything feels suffocating. Robert sits on the Iron Throne. But this isn't the careless king people are used to. This is a man who feels betrayed, dangerous, unpredictable. Tell me the truth, Robert demands. And Ned Stark does exactly what everyone feared he would do. He tells him, no hesitation, no hesitation, no fear, no attempt to soften the blow. The words land like a blade. Silence follows, heavy, crushing. For a moment, no one moves. And then Robert stands. Not slowly, not calmly, violently. The rage that fills the room is something no one can control. Years of lies, humiliation, betrayal, it all hits at once. Lannisters, he growls, like the word itself is poison. And just like that, the balance of power shatters. Because now, it's no longer suspicion, it's war waiting to happen. The court erupts into chaos. Some deny it, some stay silent, some are already calculating their next move. But Cersei isn't watching them. She's watching her father's plan fall apart and rebuild itself at the same time. Because Tywin Lannister never relies on one outcome. And suddenly, Cersei understands something terrifying. This moment was always a possibility, and the Lannisters are already prepared for it. That's when it happens. The shift. Gold cloaks begin to move, not toward the Lannisters, toward Ned. Because in King's Landing, truth doesn't win you allies. Power does. And right now, Ned Stark has none. Cersei's breath catches not in surprise, but in realization. This is it. The exact moment she feared, where everything comes down to one choice. Ned turns, just slightly, as if he already knows. Their eyes meet across the chaos. No words. But everything is understood. If she does nothing, he dies. If she speaks, everything changes. And for the first time in her life, Cersei Lannister does something that isn't calculated. She chooses. Stop. Her voice cuts through the room like a blade. Everyone freezes, even Robert. Cersei stoops forward, not as a Lannister, not as a political player, but as something else entirely. As Ned Stark's wife. "You want the truth?" she says, her voice steady now, stronger than anyone expects. "Then hear all of it." The room holds its breath, because whatever she says next will decide everything. Her family, her husband, her future, even her son's life. And, for the first time, Cersei Lannister is not playing the game. She's ending it. The throne room is silent. Not the kind of silence that feels calm, but the kind that feels dangerous. Like the air itself is waiting, Cersei stands in the center, every eye on her. For once in her life, she doesn't have a script, no carefully planned manipulation, no hidden move waging 3 steps ahead, just the truth and the cost of it. Robert's voice cuts through the stillness. "Speak." Simple, cold, final. Cersei takes a breath, but not to steady herself, to choose, because she knows this is the moment that will decide everything. Her family, or the man she never expected to care about, power, or something real. And then she speaks. "The children are not yours." No hesitation, no denial, no game. The words hit harder than anything Ned said, because this isn't accusation anymore, it's confirmation. From a Lannister, the room erupts, but Robert doesn't, not immediately. He just stares at her, and for the first time the anger in him looks different, not explosive, broken, because deep down he already knew. He just never wanted to hear it out loud. "Who?" he asks. And now, this is the final line. Because this answer doesn't just expose the truth, it destroys a family. Cersei's jaw tightens for a fraction of a second. Then Jaime. The name lands like a death sentence. And everything that follows happens fast, too fast. Robert roars not like a king, but like a man completely undone. Orders are shouted. Guards move. Chaos spreads through the throne room like wildfire. Seize him. Seize all of them. Now it's no longer politics. It's blood. The Lannisters in the room react instantly. Some reaching for weapons, others backing away, already calculating escape. And right in the middle of it, Ned Stark is no longer the target. For the first time since this began, he's no longer the one about to die. Cersei's choice did that. But choices like this don't come without consequences. Because the moment she speaks Jaime's name, she feels it. That invisible line snap. She is no longer protected by her family. She has turned against them. Completely. And in a world like this, that's almost a death sentence on its own. Ned moves quickly, stepping between her and the rising chaos. Not dramatically. Not like a hero in a story. Just instinct, protecting her. And that alone says everything about how far they've come. Because this isn't duty anymore. This is something else, something real. The throne room spirals. Gold cloaks clash with Lannister guards. Shouting, steel, panic, it all blends together. But above it all, Robert stands, breathing heavily, his entire world collapsing in front of him. "Kill him," Robert says again, quieter this time, but somehow more dangerous. And everyone knows exactly who he means. Jaime Lannister. But Jaime is already gone. Because men like him don't wait around for justice. They survive. And that's when the reality of what just happened begins to settle in. This isn't over. Not even close. Because House Lannister will not accept this. Tywin Lannister will not accept this. What Cersei just did isn't just betrayal. It's war. The immediate aftermath is messy, unstable, uncertain. Ned pulls her away from the throne room before things get worse. Before someone decides she's just as guilty. Before Robert's rage finds a new target. They move through the halls quickly, guarded, tense. And for the first time since this all began, there's nothing between them. No lies. No distance. Just the weight of what she's done. When they finally stop, away from the chaos, there's a moment where neither of them speaks. Cersei looks different now. Not weaker, but stripped of something. The armor she's always worn. Gone. "I chose you," she says quietly. Not dramatically. Not emotionally. Just honestly. And Ned, for once, doesn't respond with duty or honor. He just looks at her and understands what that cost. Because this wasn't just a decision, this was the end of her old life, and the beginning of something uncertain, dangerous but real. Outside, King's Landing is already shifting. Messengers are riding, armies will move. And somewhere far away, Tywin Lannister is going to hear what happened. And when he does, he won't see a daughter who made a difficult choice. He'll see a traitor. But here's the thing, no one in Westeros expects Cersei Lannister, the woman who always chose power, didn't choose power this time. She chose something stronger, something far more dangerous. She chose to stand against the game itself, and in doing so, she may have just changed the fate of the entire realm.